Good morning. I call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So today we are not in our usual chambers, but usually we do meet the second and fourth Thursday of every month at 9 a.m. at 255 North Forbes Street, Lakeport, California. The meeting room is wheelchair accessible, and a request for disability-related modifications or accommodation necessary to participate in the Planning Commission meeting should be made in writing to the Office Assistant 3 at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. Can we get a verification of legal notices?
Yes, the item was properly noticed.
And consent agenda. I don't see any items. So we will move forward to public input. Any person may speak for 3 minutes about any subject of concern, provided that it is within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission and is not already on today's agenda or scheduled for a future public hearing. Speakers are requested to legibly write or say your name in the at the podium, and state your name for the record. If anybody wishes to speak, you may do so for public input. Can we take a look in the Zoom room?
There are no hands raised.
No hands in the Zoom room. I don't see any hands here in chambers. So we will move on to our first item. Oh,
I'm sorry, I am not familiar with protocol here. So if we wanted to speak on the agenda item, we wait.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Only if it's not within today's agenda. Yeah. All right. So our first item, consideration of proposed major use permit UP 20-57 and mitigated negative declaration IS 20-68 for Lake County land restoration for approval of commercial cannabis cultivation of 435,600 square feet of canopy area within 457,000 square feet of cultivation area located at 6051 Ridge Road, 5951 Ridge Road, 6200 Ridge Road, and 1109 Vernal Drive in Lakeport. The APNs are 007-047-03, 007-047-01, 007-053-02, and 007-053-01.
Good morning, Mireya Turner, Community Development Director. Our Assistant Planner, Mary Claiborne, will be presenting for you today.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mary Claiborne, Assistant Planner 2, County of Lake Planning Division. Today for your consideration is major use permit UP 2057 and initial study IS 2068 for Lake County land restoration, applicant WFPS Enterprises LLC. Next slide. Thank you. The agenda today will go over the permit request, the project scope, site description, project analysis, aspects of interest, cumulative impacts, and recommendations and conditions. The applicant is present in chambers today. The project proposes a total of 435,600 square feet of outdoor cannabis cultivation area canopy area within 457,000 square feet of cultivation area. This is encompassing of 10 A-type 3 medium outdoor licenses and 1 type 13 self-distribution transport only license. The combined parcel size is approximately 312.4 acres. Next slide, please. The site is located approximately 2.26 miles northeast of Highland Springs Reservoir. The zoning designations include rural lands, B5, waterway combining district. General plan is rural lands. This is within the Kelseyville planning area in supervisorial district 4. The site description. Project parcels have variable topography with hills, ridges, slopes, and valleys. The proposed cultivation areas have been previously graded and cleared of vegetation from former agricultural and grazing operations. The site was previously issued early activation in 2021 under the original applicant. Project scope for Site A consists of 114,000 square feet of cannabis canopy, 7 5,000-gallon water tanks, 1 being steel or fiberglass dedicated to fire suppression, 20 parking spaces, 1 ADA compliant space, 2 portable chemical toilets, ADA compliant with hand washing stations, a 15-foot by 15-foot garbage enclosure, pesticides and chemical storage within the existing barn, security office within the existing barn. And stage 2 of this project includes a processing building, approximately 20,000 square feet, vegetative screening consisting of woody vegetation or trees that grow to no less than 20 feet tall. Project scope for Site B. Site B consists of 343,000 square feet of cannabis canopy, 10 parking spaces, 1 being ADA compliant, 2 ADA compliant portable chemical toilets with hand washing stations, a 15-foot by 15-foot garbage enclosure, and a 15-foot by 15-foot green waste enclosure. Existing uses. The ranch is developed with an existing residence, garden, 2 sheds, a barn workshop, stable, gate, and well. Project analysis. Regulations reviewed for compliance include the Lake County General Plan, Kelseyville Area Plan, Lake County Zoning Ordinance, and state regulations. Project analysis. The Lake County General Plan. Policies reviewed included Chapter 3 Land Use, Chapter 7 Health and Safety, and Chapter 11 Water Resources. There were no conflicting policies within the general plan and no specific policies addressing commercial cultivation in the general plan. Kelseyville Area Plan Project Analysis. The applicant has provided a water availability analysis and drought management plan and is required to adhere to the State Water Resources Control Board cannabis cultivation policy requiring runoff to be retained on-site, mitigating off-site downstream drainage impacts. A cultural resources assessment was also provided by the applicant. Mitigation measures have been added to the conditions of approval. Project analysis, Lake County Zoning Ordinance. Article 7, Rural Lands was reviewed. Article 37, Waterway Combining District. Article 30, Special Lot Density. And Article 27, Uses Generally Permitted. The CEQA initial study found that the project could cause potential impacts to the following resources: aesthetics, air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, hazards and hazardous materials, hydrology and water quality, noise, and wildfire. California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. A mitigated negative declaration is the proposed CEQA environmental determination for this project. All identified impacts can be reduced to less than significant with mitigation measures. Public comment occurred from May 17th, 2023 to June 15th, 2023. And the mitigations are outlined in the staff report, attachments 2, draft conditions of approval, and attachment 4, draft initial study. AB 52 tribal notification. Notification of the project was sent to 11 local tribes on June 17th, 2020. There was no request for tribal consultation. Aspects of interest, a change in applicant. On September 13th, 2022, the Community Development Department received notification of an applicant transfer for the pending project identified as UP 2057 Lake County Land Restoration LLC to WFPS Enterprises LLC with all required documentation for the applicant transfer. Aspects of interest, access. The property is accessed by Ridge Road and Vernal Drive, both of which are dirt and gravel unmaintained county roads with public utility easements. There are currently 3 gates existing along Ridge Road and 1 proposed at the Vernal Drive cultivation site. The gates are used by property owners within the subdivision. The applicant proposes using an existing gate at the entrance of the project site and has provided gate codes to neighbors upon request. Aspects of interest, public utility easement and access to property owners within the Donovan Valley subdivision. The Donovan Valley subdivision includes public utility easements and allows property owners to access through these easements. The utility easements vary from 50 feet to 350 feet, with the greater width being along the ridge lines where no development is proposed. An additional aspect of interest is the farmland of local importance and the farmland protection zone. The State of California Farmland Mapping and Monitoring Program identifies soils qualifying for prime farmland and farmland of statewide importance. The project location was designated as farmland of local importance. Land of importance, however, is determined by a local agricultural economy and the Board of Supervisors. The areas in which the board determined were farmland of local importance were evaluated as the farmland protection zone, also listed as areas within the commercial cannabis exclusion zones for outdoor cultivation. These designated areas can only grow cannabis indoors or in permanent greenhouse structures equipped with odor filtration systems. While this site is listed as local importance on the state maps, it has not been designated as farmland of local importance within the farmland protection zone by the County of Lake Board of Supervisors. Cumulative impacts. Within 1 mile of this project are 2 approved and 2 pending projects. Wellness Ranch has 2 approved minor use permits and 1 pending major use permit. Deluxe California has a major use permit pending. Within 3 miles of this proposed project are 5 approved and 1 pending major use permit projects. BG Property Management, Stella Green Farms, and Workrite Processing Facility are approved and in operation. Voight Holdings is an approved project for a major use permit, but has not ever operated. And Needham Dixon is an approved project pending expiration due to non-operation. A pending project identified as Voight Nadora has recently been withdrawn. Recommendations. Environmental recommendations are to adopt mitigated negative declaration initial study IS 2068 for use permit UP 2057 with the findings found in the staff report. Major use permit recommendations. Approve use permit UP 2057 with the proposed conditions of approval with the findings found in the staff report. And I'm available for questions or any comments you may have.
Yeah, I had a quick question. I was writing some notes down and I totally missed the farmland of local importance. So it wasn't within the,
No.
what was the buffer from the farmland?
It's actually quite a distance.
Okay. Thank you.
I just had a quick kind of stupid question. Throughout the report, it and the other documents,
sometimes WFPS is used and sometimes Lake County Land Restoration is used. Are they interchangeable or are we just going with the?
So, yes, I can clarify that for you. The original project name was Lake County Land Restoration LLC. The new applicant has kept the name of the project as Lake County Land Restoration. However, the applicant is WFPS Enterprises LLC.
Okay, and I'm just curious, what does WFPS stand for?
I can refer that back to the applicant.
Okay, great,
Mhm.
thanks.
I had another question. So I do have this picture that was provided to us. Is that the pond that's described on the site maps?
That is the pond that's not in use. That's the reservoir.
The reservoir,
That's
okay.
not a part of the cultivation.
Okay, so I had a question. Is the cultivation within the potential spillway of this reservoir?
It is not. Actually, Janae Freed with the water boards went out to the site to confirm that the cultivation areas were well out of the buffer zones.
Okay, but it is downhill of the reservoir,
Yes.
the cultivation zone.
Mhm.
Do they have a plan in case we do get a lot of rain and it overspills, or?
So I can refer that question to the applicant, but I'm sure that would be part of the cannabis cultivation policy for stormwater with the state water boards.
Okay, and the water from this reservoir will be used?
No,
No, okay,
groundwater only.
Okay.
No surface water diversions.
thank you.
In the agency comments, Water Resources had listed several missing items. Have those been addressed?
They have been addressed and the discharger information has been updated with the water boards from the original applicant to WFPS Enterprises LLC.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
So I know that this project is going to be in phases, phase 1, phase 2, and stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3,
Just
Just
2 stages.
1 and 2. Okay.
Mhm.
So for the processing building, I do know that there's some grading that's going to be involved. Also, one of the just looking at the topography map, it looks like I think it was cultivation. The one on the east side, I think it's on a little bit more of a slope.
Mhm.
Is any grading going to happen?
It's
for
my
that.
understanding that the grading will only occur at the front of the premise where the proposed processing building will be erected, not on the east side of the parcels.
Okay, and if we approve this project, obviously that building will go up on stage 2.
Stage.
Are those building? Is it in the process already of getting design and building permits for that yet?
No. The major use permit project does need to be approved before any permits can be applied for.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a lot of questions, but I don't know if now's the appropriate time to ask them. Do we want to hear from the public first or?
All right. So I'll go ahead and open public comment. Please state your first and last name for the record.
Yeah, I'd love to see a sure it's one. Yeah, that's good. Good morning. My name is Tom Lasik. We live at 6451 Ridge Road, which is a parcel just south of the applicant's major use permit parcel. We've worked with the Planning Commission to express our concerns with the permit because of the history that LCLR had in the past. The Planning Commission has done, in our views, done a really good job at least listening to us, and a lot of the concerns that we have been addressed, except for one, in my view, one very important issue, and that is the blocking of Ridge Road and Vernal Drive. We've kind of worked back and forth with the county as whether it's a public road or a private road. We have historically what's called non-exclusive access to that road. It's a private shared access road. On the site maps and everything else, it's kind of trivialized as an access road or a gravel road, but they're actually the deeded roads for the subdivision. And on the maps, it shows 4 locked gates. on the road. And while we don't have an issue with a gate on the road for livestock and things of that nature, it is very problematic for us to have those gates locked. We've worked with the county. We said it would be reasonable to put a gate there with, a ranch gate with a chain, which was used to be there. But currently it's padlocked with a combination lock. I had an issue this week with another neighbor who didn't have the lock. He lives in Nevada, and he couldn't get his technician through. The back of Vernal Drive, where on the site map it says it's going to be a lock gate, is currently fenced off completely. The staff report says that it's not accessible, and while it's a rough road, I hike it, and I've hiked it in the past. I have a legal right to the road, as do all my other neighbors. We'd like to be reasonable. We don't want a range war, but the gates need to be unlocked. We need to be able to get through, and it's also our access to Highway 175, which is our plan B, because as currently we only have one way in or out of that valley. And if there's an emergency, and in 2018 we had to evacuate, we want to, as neighbors, we were talking about improving that road again so that we can punch through and get to 175 if needed. And same thing with Vernal Drive. It used to loop around. It's blocked on one end. We'd like to punch it through so that we have, at least for safety reasons, if not recreation reasons, the ability to use the roads that we have a legal right to. I'll be happy to answer any other questions if you have of me, but that's the main concern that we have. It can have a gate, but it cannot be locked. And if they have to revise their security plan or the property management plan as such, so be it. But it seems to a reasonable request on our part. We're not trying to shut them down or anything like that, but we do have a right to that road. It should not be blocked. And if it is a public road, the ordinance is clear. You can't block a public road. And if it's a private road, our rights still apply. Thank you.
Was Mr. Polson the neighbor?
Yes, he was.
We did receive a written.
Yeah, he actually got a call from the fire department asking, because he called the fire department. And so I got involved, and I had to, we traded contact information. And I suggested he write a letter and try to get it in front.
We did receive that.
Okay, thank you. And then in September, the ambulances came out and they could not get through because the gate was locked. So
I want to thank you for that, your comment. It's one of my concerns as well. And my question is a little bit bigger. I mean, if it's a public road and the citizens of Lake County are paying for it or have paid for it, I mean, I don't know how well maintained it is, but I mean, I feel like I should be able to go walk my dog on that road as well, just as a citizen of.
That is my understanding. We've gone back and forth whether it's a public road, because the paperwork we submitted shows that before it could be allowed to be a subdivision in the 80s or 90s, they had to dedicate the roads to the county. Mary has looked into it, and it looks like the easements have been dedicated, but not necessarily the road. I'm not legal enough to know the nuances there, but as a neighbor, it doesn't matter either way, because we still have our rights to use the road. I would like to think that you would have your rights. We know that horseback riders from the park traverse up the road and down Ridge Road all the time, and they're able to get through. We do have a gate at the very beginning of Highland Springs Road and Ridge Road, but horses and other vehicles, horses and ATVs and motorcycles can easily get around the gate. All the neighbors have a keypad and have a remote, and there's a button that anybody can push if they know where it is, that will open the gate and allow people through. And we've installed a Knox box for the fire district. But that's a gate that we all own. We all pay money. We all fill potholes. We all do that. But these gates we don't own. We don't control. And to allow someone to lock it is, I think, from a legal standpoint, violates our rights as neighbors to do that. And we've
Thank you.
emailed that. If you need a gate for livestock, we understand that. There's a little chain, which used to be there. There was a little chain latch, and the previous owner said, yeah, if it's open, Leave it how you found it. If it was locked, go
Right.
through, but lock it behind you. You don't want the horses to get out.
Yeah, I don't know the nuances of the law either, but Mary can maybe help us out. Do you?
So with that, this is actually a public utility easement with access for property owners within the subdivision.
So I, as just a citizen of Lake County, do not have the right to use it?
I would not be able to answer that question. I would defer to county council for that.
Yeah.
Who isn't here, I don't think.
But I can speak to the applicant providing gate codes to neighbors upon request.
And I don't think that's enough. Again, I went to the lock the other day to help Mr. Paulson. And we've had locks on the entrance we had a daisy chain set of locks in the past. And I'm a senior. I'm visually impaired. My wife, she won't admit it, but she's also a senior. Another one of my neighbors that's here today, his parents live in the subdivision. They're in their 80s. Mr. Paulson's in his mid 70s. If we have to get through at night in the rain, and this has happened, it's problematic. And I don't see why it needs to be locked. And if it has to be locked to be in compliance with security code or site plan or whatever, change it so you don't need it. Any other questions?
I just wanted to say I really appreciated the cordial tone you maintained throughout your email exchanges with Mary Claiborne.
Right.
It's refreshing to
She's
see.
been great.
Refreshing to see.
Yeah, she's been great. The whole planning commission has been great. I think they try to listen to both sides and try to stay impartial. So we appreciate that. We know they're understaffed. We know we have asked a lot of questions, but
I think you mean the planning department.
planning department, you guys have been great.
We're not, we're just sitting there.
But that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your first and last name.
My name is Mike Mitzel. I'm a representative of the project. So just to be clear, when you come off of Highland Springs Road, like he said, there's a locked gate. So there's no access to the road if you don't know the code to get in the gate. There is a little like walking path through, but you can't have ATVs in that area of Highland Springs anyway. So the only people that could be out there is either hikers or horseback. But it's already blocked. And then everybody off of that road onto their private property has another gate that's locked, or that has the ability to be locked off of the main road. When you get back to the back part of that loop, we own all the parcels around the loop, from one side to the loop to the other. So you can go from one side of Vernal Drive, get to where our property starts. There's not a gate there, but the road is gone. Like he said, there's maybe a hiking path where the road once was, but there's definitely no road from the one side of Vernal Drive over to the other. And then there's a gate on the other side of the loop. But like I said, we own all the parcels in between except for the two that Paulson owns. We reached out to him and we couldn't really get a hold of him. That's why we're kind of surprised that he made the comment. So we talked with Mary. We have no problem removing the lock if that's really like the sticking point of this. Like, obviously we'll get rid of the lock. We don't really see the point of getting rid of the lock if we give them the combination. It's already locked at the front. So it's like, if that's the whole thing of the project, we'll just get rid of the lock off the gate. We also have the ability to file, what is the?
General plan conformity and road vacation.
So that's our plan. We're going to vacate that road in the back. We would have to work with the other property owner, obviously, that owns the only two parcels that we don't have to do that. But that we want to try that in the future, and then we would be able to lock it. So it's like not the end of the world if we can't lock it, but
My concern is that I don't know the law well enough. And I know that if you set a precedence by locking something, then over a period of time, there's some kind of statute of limitations.
I mean, it doesn't go anywhere. There's a paper road. Like if you look at it on a map, it goes straight up this hill that like you can't even get up on in a dirt bike. And then the other one goes through a gorge that like there hasn't been a road there in 30 years. So it doesn't go anywhere. There's like nowhere to go once you get through that gate. So except for into our property and turn around and leave. That's all you could do. So that's why it had always been locked and had never been a problem, because there's nowhere to go past that gate. And there, like I said, there is a paper road. If you look at it on paper, it comes from Ridge back down through into that valley, but you can never get there. Like
But is there an easement? Is that road?
it's not a
regardless of
public
condition?
easement. It's a utility easement. So it's a PG&E easement along that road, but it's not a public road. It's already locked off in the front.
Yeah, I'd like to understand better what that means.
Yeah, but I'm like I said, if we need to get rid of the lock, if that's what the conditions are on it, we'll get rid of the lock. So it's fine.
At what point do you need to restrict access for security reasons as required by the
I
county?
mean, we have it right. The existing gate is like 50 feet in from the property line. There's a fence that has been there for, I don't know how many years, at least 30 years probably. And there's an existing little cattle gate right there. And it already had a chain, and we just put a lock instead of a clip on it. It was like clipped, like the neighbor Tom said, and we have a padlock on it. We've given him the code through community development, but if they want us to get rid of it, it's whatever. Or like or we could put a key, we could give him a key to it if he can't do the code or whatever he wants to do. But I mean, we just had it locked because it's like a reasonable place to put a gate. It's like right when you go into the property, there's the 2 parcels behind it aren't occupied. The old owner said he had never even been there. So it's not like there's a house behind on those 2 parcels. It's just 2 parcels that he had never been there in the 3 years that I have been here. And apparently he came last weekend. I don't know where the ambulance would have got stopped or what the ambulance was there for. I don't understand that, but I don't know. So if we need to get rid of it, we'll get rid of it. We don't really think it's necessary if we give them the key, but the road's already locked in the front. So
Well, I think if there's 2 parcels, I mean, he might not have them developed now, but he might sell them. He might build a house. He might not. And,
yeah,
I'd
we're
like to see a resolution before we proceed.
I mean, the resolution could easily just be, we'll take the lock off, and we're fine with that.
Yeah, come up to the podium and first and last name.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Tom Lasik again. Just sort of as a rebuttal, one of the issues we had with the applicant is, with the application is that they seem to trivialize the road and our rights to the road, whether it's accessible or not, or nobody's out there something. Mr. Paulson has owned that property about as long as my family has. My family's owned it since the 80s. The gate that has been there since the 80s that was on their property is not a few feet in, it's about 1/10 of a mile in. And historically, it just was a simple ranch gate with the chain. That's still there. What they've done is they've added a second gate since 2020 after they sold it. It's 8 feet high with a deer fence, chains wrapped all around it, and it's locked. Vernal Drive was open all the way to the back. My mom and I and others, we would, as families, we'd hike that and walk that. It is now fenced across. Their plan says they'll have a lock gate, but when I hiked it July, I found myself having to go bushwhack all the way around. I still have to bushwhack through about 100 yards or so, but I have a backhoe. My neighbor has a backhoe. We have another neighbor with a backhoe, and as I mentioned, our plan is to improve those roads so that we can get through. Mr. Paulson, talking to him this week, he's there because PG&E is saying that they want to remove his meter because he hasn't paid electricity in a while. And then they also want to install new poles. So he has an electrician out there so he can still be in compliance and have access to electricity. Doesn't really matter how we use it, what we use it, it's still our legal right. And with all due respect to everyone concerned, it's upsetting for them to trivialize it as if they've been there forever when they haven't. And we have.
So let me ask you this. What would you like to see happen?
Well, as it pertains to the gate, I would like to see the gates unlocked. The idea of being an abandonment, good luck with that, because as they don't have the legal right to abandon the road that we all have non-exclusive access to.
Okay,
That's
so
related to us.
if I understand correctly, Mr. Mitchell just offered to remove the lock. Is that going to be?
That should remove all the locks. If you look at their plan, they have 4 lock gates on their site plan. One at Ridge Road, which is currently in place, one near the junction of Ridge Road and Vernal Drive, and then one at the beginning of cultivation site B on the west side and another on the east side. That's 4 locked gates.
Okay, I see him nodding behind you. Is that?
There's not locked, the only one that's locked.
Well, those, you look at their site plan, and if it's a plan, then you would assume that's what they plan to do. They plan to lock those gates. If they're not going to do it, change it. Just make it very absolutely clear. There will be no lock gates on Vernal Drive and Ridge Road. We need free and unfettered access. We're willing to accept a gate that doesn't have a lock. Totally fine. But we're going by what they wrote, what's going to be in the legal record. If that's not what they intend to do, then update their record so that it shows what they actually intend to do. We're not trying to be jerks about it, but it is upsetting for us for someone to come in and say, oh, it's never been that way, and they've never lived there. They don't know how we use it.
Right.
They don't know that we've bicyclists go through, hikers go through, horseback riders go through, people on their motorbikes go through. It doesn't matter how we use it.
Right.
We can go on scooters, we can go on pogo sticks. It doesn't really matter. That's my rebuttal to that.
Okay, thank you. I think what we'll try to do is write in some kind of amendment or something so that we can, it makes sense to me that public access routes are unlocked.
Yeah, it makes sense. And the condition of the road is immaterial. It's still our road. Yeah, it's everybody's road.
Thank you.
Chair Chavez, if it be the will of the commission, we do have the county surveyor in on Zoom room. He's been in and he's conferred with the planning staff, and there were some things that should be mentioned about Vernal Road specifically. If Vance is available,
Sure,
to provide that.
Mr.
Morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Vance Ricks. I'm the county surveyor. Now, we're going to talk about the road easements. Those road easements were offered for the public roads. It is not a county maintained road. And in regards to the gates, Street and Highway Code does specifically reference gates. And usually what happens on these types of situations, we get complaints about gates on these public access roads. And what transpires from there is the board will direct us to remove gates. And if we remove one gate on the road, we will remove probably all of the gates on the road. Now, the fact that on Highland Springs there's a gate, it hasn't been an issue as far as we've heard up until just today, up higher where the applicant is proposed to put in a gate or has a gate. Usually in situations like this, there's a combo that everybody has access to, or in some cases, everybody puts their own lock on the gate. So everyone has access to it. Now, regards to the vacation of roads, when we vacate a road, we only vacate the rights to the public. It does not interfere with any underlying rights. So when they vacate a road, we're just vacating the rights of the public. Easements will remain within the subdivision, anyone else who has rights to it. Have any other questions?
There was also discussion regarding the location of what has actually been developed on Vernal Drive versus where the actual utility and property owner easement is located. If Mr. Ricks wouldn't mind speaking to that.
On the northern side, it looks like Vernal Drive was originally designed to have a loop road to come out. Well, that's how to describe this here. Northerly of the gate that's in question, that's on the applicant's property. Looking at aerial photographs, it appears that there really is no roadway in this area. It traverses chemise, and eventually it looks more like a fire trail and not a easement for roadway purposes on that portion of it. And if that's the portion of the road that the applicant was referring to. So it physically does not look like there is a road in this area for Vernal Drive within the applicant's property.
So the problem doesn't go away even with a road vacation because the easements will remain?
That is correct.
Clear? Thanks.
I'm confused.
To be clear though, his property.
First and last name for the records.
Mike Mitchell, representing the project. So his property is before the gate. He doesn't have to go through the gate to get to his property.
Who's he?
So his
Okay.
property is before you go through the one green gate at Highland Springs that everybody has the access code to. You go in a few miles, you go by Tom's house, keep going, then you get to the gate. So like he doesn't access his property through the gate. The only person that accesses their property through the gate is Mr. Pullman, who has the two parcels. Everything else is ours, all the way around that loop. Even where he's saying that Vernal Drive doesn't exist, we own both sides of where it doesn't exist. So from where it starts to where it comes out the other side, all the way back around like a few hundred yards back the other way. So there's the only person with the access would be Pullman. And I don't believe his easements give him rights to all the roads. Like what your easements give you rights to your property, not through somebody else's property around, not to your property. It's not how easement works. So I don't believe he has the easement. I don't believe he has free access to that road. You have to have a parcel back there to have free access to that road.
Okay, that remains unclear to me.
Me too.
I don't. I mean,
I think that if it's a public
it's
road,
not a public road though. It's just a public
easement.
Yeah.
it's a utility.
And it's already blocked from the public. So like if it was a public road, you wouldn't be able to have the green gate at the front that only has access to property owners behind that green gate, right? And then the road is a property access road when everybody has an easement all the way through to get to their property. But you can't just drive through your subdivision past your property like when it's into other people's properties. Like, I don't know. I've never heard of that, but.
So I'd like to just take you at your word, but I do feel that I'd like to speak to our county council before we proceed.
And like I said, again, we're willing to open the gates. So I don't feel like it should hold the project up because they are proposed on our map because we didn't know it was going to be a problem, right? So the gate was already there. So we proposed to lock it because it's like a pretty normal thing to do to lock a gate going into a cannabis project. So we put the gates are locked on the map, but it's just because that's like what you do.
So are you willing to go on the record today and state that you will leave all the gates that have any kind of public utility access or any public anything of any kind unlocked?
Yeah, but we're going to file for that vacation and then they won't be public and then we could lock them, right?
But that's conjecture at this point.
Yeah, but we'll open all the gates and we're fine with that.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, To clarify, the general plan conformity and road vacation will be to reduce the setbacks from the varying easement from 50 feet to 350 feet that will allow the processing facility.
It's meeting a setback, so it's actually general condition number 12.
Okay.
So it is, the road vacation is a required part of this project.
Okay.
It's not a for sure thing since that's up to the Board of Supervisors. But the applicant would work with the county surveyor on that project. And that would, that is a required step prior to starting construction on the processing building.
For stage 2. So stage 1 would be implemented. The general plan conformity and road vacation would have to occur prior to stage 2.
That's,
But would this mean that anybody using that public utility easement could drive right up into the applicant's grow area? I mean, at some point, the county requires security and limiting or restricting access to a grow.
Yes.
So where does that fit into this chain here?
So prior to the hearing this morning, I did speak with the applicant outside and let them know that if we did have potential issues in this specific area, then perimeter fencing around the cannabis canopy would be required with locking gates. We do have other projects within the county that do have roadways that run directly through the projects with cannabis canopy on either side of the roadway that is fully contained with perimeter fencing and locked gates.
Interesting.
Commissioners?
Mike Mitchell. It's already like that, where the road goes through, there's a gate on each side of the canopy already. So, and then where it goes in, there's a shut area right now. And then the one part in the back doesn't have it, but it's because there's no road through it. But if we have to put a fake road through there, I guess we will, but it's just not there. So I don't know. Like when you get to the very back canopy, there's not a gate that goes through the other side because there's nowhere to go. And like he said, he just kind of walked around it, I guess, and then went through, because you could do that. You could walk right around like the bubble where the cannabis canopy is. It's not exactly on the easement, but that's what he did apparently. So it is closed off from the road though. Everywhere the road goes through, there's a fence on each side. Just to be clear.
Commissioners?
Council.
Yes.
Oh, if you're still, my apologies, if you still have public comment open, then, but I can give some general direction as far as roads and easements and.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Would you like me to wait until comment is over?
You can go ahead.
Okay, so normally with roads and access to property, especially when it's rural, it can get a little confusing, especially if there's been a history of use of a particular sort of naturally created access route through various kinds of undeveloped properties. Normally with a subdivision, as you're aware, you would have an approved plots of a subdivision, and then there would be a dedicated road. The county can accept the dedication or not, and then can maintain the road or not. In this case, you would have one of two options that would need to be determined, one or two outcomes that would need to be determined whether or not this particular road or roads access points are in fact county dedicated and or county maintained. And if that's the case, the road access rules for a county maintained road would apply. If it is not a county dedicated and or maintained road, then the rules for private access would apply, and that would be dependent on easements and the CC&Rs for the development itself. If a road is dedicated to the county and the county has accepted the dedication, and the applicant ultimately or the property owner ultimately applies for a road vacation, and that vacation is approved, then the dedication therefore is nulled, and the underlying property to which that vacation applied would then go back to the individual property owners who have a right to that property. So for example, if there were no easements, then the road itself would be returned to the lots as they are shown on any map for that subdivision. And then if there were CC&Rs or easements that were created with the subdivision that applied to those lots for access, then those would govern in that instance. So in this case, it sounds as if the commission is unclear as to which sets of rules apply and which properties have a right of access through the subject lots of this particular project. So even though there may have been, the community may have accessed through that property historically, it may not be that they actually have an access right. It may just be that neighboring properties do, maybe, and that would be something your commission would not be determining. So then the question remains then the question that remained for you, therefore, it would be, who has authority here? Is it the county or is it a private right? And if that's the case, what can your commission require based on the rules that apply then through that particular set of rules? And then if there is something that is recommended by staff that is not permissible because of the underlying rights that are at play here, does that mean that something required for the permit itself cannot happen? And if that's the case, then there would need to be an amendment of the project or some clarification that the applicant could make through their neighbors, or a denial of the permit if the element that is then missing becomes ineligible, makes the permit unapprovable, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Nicole. I think that I'll have clarity if you just answer one little thing.
Sure.
You said that if it's a county road and then the rules of the county apply. And so what are those rules?
Well,
specifically, can anybody put up a gate, locked or unlocked, across a county road like that?
Well, my understanding is there are a number of ways in which the county can have a property interest in a particular road.
So it gets more complicated.
Right. So if it is a public access road, for example, it was dedicated to the county accepted the dedication, and it's used as a roadway by the public, as you noted earlier, then it could not be gated. The county could arguably put up a gate in certain areas, but the private citizens could not if it were a county road. But there may be other criteria that apply depending on whether or not the county accepted the dedication but hasn't maintained the road or didn't accept the dedication. So it would depend on the specific circumstances here.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Chavez, the county surveyor has raised his hand in the Zoom room as well.
Okay. Go ahead. That's great.
Hello, Vance Ricks, county surveyor, and to clarify the question on the roadway. The roadway is an easement for the benefit of the public, according to the subdivision map, and it was specifically rejected for maintenance. Now, this is a requirement on any subdivision that does not front a county-maintained road. So every subdivision that we see has to have this offer of dedication for roadway easements, which was accepted by the board back in April of 1982. So the roads in question are easements, but not county maintained. So these are easements for the benefit of the public. So hopefully that answered the second question on the status of this roadway.
If that's the case, then then a private citizen could not gate the road.
That is correct. Yes, there's a state and highway code, and it's, give me a second here. I want to say it's 966, where it could be allowed that gates are put on these types of roads. And it's state and highway code, I think 1468, which gives the board the authority to remove these gates if they become a nuisance.
Thank you.
And if that easement were to be vacated, then the property rights as they existed in the development, absent the county easement, would return to what they otherwise would be. So if there were no other easements on the property, then each of the individual property owners who owned a specific portion of the dedicated roadway would then would receive their property rights back. So then they could then put up a gate at their property unless there was some other easement that had a right to access.
That is correct. Yes.
Thank you for those clarifications. All right, we do have a speaker here in chambers.
Yeah, this is Tom Lasik again, and just maybe put a slightly fine point on this. We did submit to the county a copy of a letter from the California State Department of Real Estate dated back in 1982 and I think amended in 1992 that speaks to the subject of the roads. There are 3 roads in the valley. One is Ridge Road, the other one's Vernal Drive, and the other one's Amber Ridge Court. And it says in there, prior to the dedication, that all subdivision parcels have what's called non-exclusive rights to the entirety of all the roads. And that's, they mentioned 6.5 miles of road, if I recall correctly. So what that means, even if the applicant doesn't understand or believe it, we don't have just rights to the piece of road in front of us. We have rights to the entirety of all the roads within the subdivision. The letter goes on to, this is prior to dedication. And it states in the letter that that they currently, as of 1982, we currently had these rights, and that they were going to dedicate to the county, and that the road had to be upgraded to county standards, and that the engineer, according to the letter, the minutes of the letter says that the engineer says the roads were improved to county standards. Now, this is back in 1982, 92, whenever that was. So while some people may think that you only have rights to the piece of road that's in front of your property or on the way to your property, maybe in some places that's true, but in the case of Donovan Valley and that subdivision, every parcel owner has a right to every inch of the road, non-exclusive rights, which means nobody owns any one piece. And that's explicitly stated in the letter from the California State Department of Real Estate. And I think that, I mean, some people might not like it, but that's what it says. And I think the planning department can confirm that that's what's in the letter.
Thank you. The Department of Real Estate is not typically one of our reviewing agencies. So I think what we have here is interesting discussion about a complicated matter that is not
relevant to.
Yeah. And an applicant who has stated he is willing to not lock the gate.
Yeah. My understanding from what our legal counsel and our surveyor have said is that the gates need to go down. That's my understanding.
The Public Works Department has stated that if they are required to take down a gate, they will take them all down.
Great. I think that's what needs to happen.
No such order has been made for the Public Works Department.
Oh, okay.
Nor is it within the purview of this permit.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Maybe the board, right?
I think, Commissioners, if I may, I think what makes this issue pertinent to you is that if these gates, if removed or if not locked, do they prevent the applicant from meeting one of the criteria that is necessary for a use permit for cannabis cultivation? And that would be the issue here. If not, then you could move forward with the application review. If it does, then you could continue the item or deny the item depending on whether or not you think it's something that is correctable.
Well, in my mind, it's been resolved. It's not our issue, and it's addressed in item 12.
So is all gates, does that mean the green gate at the front of Highland Springs? Is that what he's saying when he says all gates need to be removed?
It'd be
the-
all gates.
Everything on that road then is gonna come down?
No, it would hypothetically, should the board say, take all those gates down,
Okay,
but not part of this project. Right.
but then they could put a condition of approval with no gates on our project, right? Is that the way it's gonna go?
My understanding is that your gate would not be locked and you have the option to amend the project for secured gates around the canopy area.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Metzel, what do you think of that?
I think it's already set up like that right now. There's the first cultivation area is separately fenced already. The second one, like I said, it's like a little kind of jog around it. I don't know if you have, it's the road's already not where it is anyway, so I don't, if that's really a problem, I don't know. I mean, we could put a gate in the backside of it, I guess. I don't.
Well, if
Just no road there.
if
So
the canopy area, et cetera, is already gated and has security fencing,
yeah,
then that's what we consider here.
yeah.
Additionally, to speak to the earlier comment regarding emergency personnel access, Chief Wrights was here earlier but had to leave for another meeting. But he did stop by and tell staff this morning that the conditions that were recommended by CAL FIRE were sufficient for him to.
Good morning. My name's Doug Herzog. I live on 7106 Bridge Court. I have two 80-somethings parents, take care of them. I have livestock. And I use the Vernal Drive to go to Tom's house all the time. I use it with my truck. I have no problem. As far as Ridge Road, it was washed out in 96, 97 in that storm. We never had the ability to fix it, but we do now. I own a D5 John Deere. So we could fix that road all the way to 175. And that'd be quicker for ambulances, access to town, everything. Right, thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on the Zoom room,
There are no hands raised in Zoom room.
chambers?
Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, county staff. I am Margot Kambara, county resident and property owner at 6451 Ridge Road.
We're just having a hard time hearing you, so I'm just getting you close.
Okay, thank you. Is that better? I would like to bring to the commissions and to county staff's attention a concern about energy use in the applicant's plan. Specifically, the applicant cites that both grow sites will be using generators. And I ask for what purpose? Because the applicant states that solar power will be used for water pumps, for drawing groundwater and mixing liquid fertilizer into the irrigation system. So why does the applicant need generators? And I pose this question because we are concerned about energy usage and the quality of life in terms of introducing unneeded pollutants into our valley. We're talking about generators that may be running 24/7 during the grow period, but we don't know that. It could be 24/7 period. So we ask that more attention be drawn to this, and we urge the planning commissioners to add a mandatory finding stipulating that the applicant is expected to apply for and install grid power for the cannabis operation. I looked through the staff report. I looked through the management plan. I saw no indication, well, the management plan wouldn't, but the staff report didn't cite any negative consequences if the applicant did not apply for grid power. I believe that this is a serious point to make. And although that cannabis ordinance is not consistent, it does state that generator use, fuel burning generator use is not permitted.
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. Was there not something in your multiple email exchanges with Mary Claiborne in which you said that you found it reasonable for generators to be used for that period to build a bridge to a PG&E? So I'm not, how does that jive with your statement here this
Okay,
morning?
because I see I don't see that cautious language in the staff report or under the findings. We're perfectly okay with what we discussed with Mary, but we just see it open-ended. Oh, well, the applicant plans to use grid power, but we see no consequences. What if the applicant gets busy and says, or it's no longer a priority, or it's financially not feasible? There's nothing that's stopping the applicant from continuing operations on fuel burning generators. And that's our concern.
But we can always add a condition of approval to address that kind of thing. And there is always a permitted use of generators in an emergency situation, which is temporary and has to be well defined.
Right.
We are fine with that. We're fine with that. I would also encourage the commission to consider applicants to update documents submitted for approval. The management plan still says that the applicant plans to divert water from the lake. Even though the other documents and the staff report says that the applicant does not plan to divert groundwater. How are we supposed to judge when that management plan still has inaccurate information? And when it comes to accountability, if their application is approved with the supporting documents that are no longer updated, what is protecting the public? I ask you to protect the public's interest. Thank you.
Ms. Kumbar, if I can just ask a question. She brings up a really good point. This is just kind of a technical question. Is this property management plan a required document? Because I feel like it's pretty inadequate in a lot of different ways.
So property management plans are a requirement for any cannabis major use permit or minor use permit application. And with that, in regards to the generator and PG&E transition services, that was included in condition number 26.
Condition 26 states that the operation shall not rely on personal gasoline, diesel, propane, or similar fuels. Power generator as a primary source of power and shall only properly permitted when applicable generators for temporary use during the transition period in which PG&E utility service upgrades are provided. So it is in the project that these are temporary. However, with that said, it is frequent now that PG&E is taking a very long time to do any sort of connections or upgrades. However, also, if it pleases the commission, under air quality, it does require that all mobile diesel equipment, which does include generators, be in compliance with state registration requirements. So, and this is specifically to meet the federal, state, and local requirements regarding the state air toxic control measures.
Thank you.
Something quickly. So going off of condition 26, and for the quality of life for the residents in that subdivision, is there a time slot that generators are allowed to be in use? The question of 24/7, I know that probably won't happen, but
should they create noise impacts, that would be evaluated.
Yeah, so like a time like from 8 to 5.
There are certain decibel levels that are allowed during different times of day.
Okay.
So even if it were emergency use, they wouldn't be allowed to make noise during 24/7.
Should there be a complaint, our staff would definitely do a site visit, monitor this noise impact at the property line, and work with the applicant to get that fixed.
So looking at the 2-year about what PG&E takes to get out to a certain property, what upgrades are supposed to happen in this property? Because I'm sure residents out there have PG&E. Is that correct? That's why the utility easement was created.
I'm not aware of what all the residents have. However, it is part of the project that the applicant will, or the permittee, should the project be granted, the permittee would work with PG&E to get that power. It really kind of depends on what their grid alignment is and what their substation has. And they walked us through this whole thing, and it's dizzying, but sometimes it can go pretty quick because it's close proximity. Other times it could take a very long time. So we are not aware of this particular project as far as PG&E's timeline.
If I may, we are satisfied with the applicant's good faith, if indeed the applicant applies good faith efforts to get onto grid power. We don't hold the applicant responsible for PG&E's delays. We're being reasonable, but we don't want to see is some kind of loophole where the permit gets approved and then the applicant delays or cancels the application to go on to grid power for cannabis operations. And if I may add another point concerning hazardous materials, if the applicant continues to use fuel burning generators, that poses a question of safety and the treatment of hazardous materials, because those generators will have to be large if the applicant, according to the management plan, will not have staff on site. Those generators are going to be refilled how and how big are they? There's going to be a fuel tank that has to store the fuel. Where is it going to be stored? It has to follow the setbacks, because there are water courses there. It has to be away from the grow. It has to be away from the road. We have not received that kind of information. So again, we are concerned about the safety of Donovan Valley. Thank you.
Is it possible to have a condition where the applicant must be or must have a contract with PG&E prior to
It is
their...
implied in the condition that notes that the generator is temporary use and not to be relied on as the sole use of power.
Okay.
Additionally, storage of hazardous materials or fuels such as that would be powering the generator are also included in the conditions under hazards and hazardous materials.
Thank you.
Mike Mitchell again. So the generators are only going to be used for the wells. There's already PG&E power on site. The house has a meter. There's 3-phase power at the beginning of the property. So it's not like we're bringing new power to the place. So it's obviously we can get the power to run it. The pump that's up there is not like a crazily big pump. It's just a regular ag well pump. So we have power on site. It's not feasible. We want the power in place. It's a lot cheaper than running the generator. So we're definitely going to do the power. We had talked to Mary about a timeline at first. We were open to like a hard date to apply for PG&E, and then she changed it to whatever was in there, but that's kind of just what they did with it. So we're open to that. And then with the hazardous materials, like she said, they are listed in the management plans. I did want to answer your question too about the name of the project. That's Matt's company. He owns Western Feed Pet Supply. So that's the acronym there is Western Feed Pet Supply. So I think that's it though. We do want to get power. We plan on doing it. We're fine with any requirements to get it on the wells. And that's the only thing that'll be using them is the wells. So they will be running nowhere near 24 hours a day. They'll only be running when the irrigation's on. So it's very limited amount of time that those will be on.
Just a quick question while you're up here. What kind of upgrades are you guys expecting to have on the property? Or the reason for the PG&E upgrades?
Just to the wells. There's 2 wells that are not right near the house. And so the power is right near the house. So we would just be bringing the power from where it's at now and putting a little bit of extra amps to getting it up there. And then it would be an ag power drop basically for the 2 wells.
Thank you.
That's the plan. Thank you.
Do we have anybody in the online?
No hands in the Zoom room.
Okay, as Ms. Kambara suggested, I'm having trouble with the language in the management plan. There's a lot of blanks in it. For example, I mean, it just seems cut and paste. It's incomplete. It refers to, I mean, clearly it's a document that was created in Colorado. It refers to Denver data. And that in itself is not a problem, but it doesn't, conform to current style guidelines. It just seems really out of date to me. And it says, for example, odor complaint response, the following individuals are responsible for responding to odor complaints, and it's blank. And then there's a bunch of other blanks in there. But my main concern is the use of the word should. It seems to me that if you're writing a management plan, it should say will or shall, not have it that subjective. And so I feel like it's really inadequate overall. I mean, I can go in, I have lots and lots of notes. For example, the proposed project is primarily will be full sun outdoor cultivation operations with some mixed light. I mean, it's not a sentence for starters, but from what I'm seeing, it's not indoor at all. Page 15 has an illustrations of lighting plans for greenhouses. Is this project going to have greenhouses? Because on the next page, we find indoor cultivation. This project does not currently involve indoor cultivation. If indoor cultivation is employed, the county has renewable energy quotas that must be met. Page 20 cites requirements, but doesn't state whether any tree removal is planned. I just don't feel like I can support this project without having some more solid, plans. I feel like it's too vague. I don't feel like it's a plan at all. It's just some verbiage. So I don't think I need to go on and on about it. What does everyone else think?
If you would like to have any of those questions answered, I'm sure the applicants are willing to answer those questions to clear.
Well,
But I do understand that some of these plans, they're just copy and paste. So
yeah,
there's going to be some things off. But yeah, I get you on that.
yeah, there's a lot of things missing from the management plan. It says throughout the document, it refers to maps, and there's just one map at the end, and it doesn't address it just seems inadequate to me. So I guess that's kind of a comment if anyone wants to address
So
it.
to address the mixed light part, there was mixed light proposed on this project at one time, so that must have been a paragraph that got left. Me and Mary went over and edited out all of the stuff that had to do with the greenhouse, but there must have been a line or two left in there. If there is anything we need to address, I'd love to address it for you, but I don't know if that's
So
adequate.
the items of information that are required in a project property management plan are listed out in Article 27.
Mhm.
And our staff does review those as a completeness item.
Mhm.
So we don't actually ding them for grammar or anything, but what we're looking for is substantive data that qualifies and meets this checklist.
Okay, so I guess my question is, by substantive data, do you mean that they can say that they should do something, that their plan is that they should do something, but they have a choice to not do that at all? And if so, what value is it?
Should a project be approved, it will go according to the project description and will be regulated by these conditions of approval. So these are not shoulds, these are shalls.
Okay, so, but the management plan is it's a requirement.
Mhm.
And does it require will or shall, or does it require should?
So
Am I making sense here? Is this?
Oh, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. What you're asking is this a plan that says it would be really cool if they did this, but they don't have to? Yeah, I get it.
Because it's fiction.
I wouldn't go that far. All permittees shall prepare the property management plan, and the intent of this plan is to identify and locate all existing cannabis and non-cannabis related uses on the property. Identify and locate all proposed cannabis and well, that's repetitive. We're going to fix that. And describe how these uses will be managed in the future.
Will be managed.
Will be. So I can understand your concern with should. However, they will be held to the conditions as well as their project description.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to actually just take a note on that one because as the commission is aware, our cannabis ordinance task force is now just going to start launching into reviewing the development standards, of which this is a part. So we'll pay attention to that to make sure we have additional clarity.
Well, I think we have a really good example here with a neighboring property owner coming in and saying, well, so what if they decide not to?
So then I would again refer to the conditions of approval, which are shalls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Certainly.
We will take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 10:25. Hello, everyone. Welcome back from our 5-minute break. So we did leave off with a public comment on the project. So I'm going to circle back and see if anybody in the Zoom room wishes to speak.
There are no hands raised in the Zoom room.
Any more hands in the chambers before we close public comment and bring it back to the commission? All right, so public comment is closed. I'm bringing it back to the commission. So the thing that I'm seeing here, obviously, the biggest issue is the road easement or utility easement. And so I don't know, are we leaning towards removing all the gates? Because we did get one comment about livestock or cattle. So I'm just curious as to how that's going to work out.
My understanding is that it's not our jurisdiction to be removing gates or anything. My main concern would be if the management plan is indeed a document that's required, that it be resubmitted in a more complete format. I feel it has way too many blanks. Yeah, I don't really care about the grammar that much, but it needs to say will and shall instead of should. So that's holding me up personally from approving this today.
If our purview is limited, and I've never relied solely on just the property management plan in making a decision about an application, but it's a key piece. But we can't talk about removing the gates, but we can accept Mr. Mitzel's proposal to remove the locks and or provide combinations. And I would be curious which of the two the residents of the subdivision would prefer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
approach the podium.
This is Tom Lasik again.
The commissioner would probably want to reopen the public hearing if we're going to take more public input.
Okay. So open comment is public comment is open. Sorry.
Tom Lasik again. Again, we're trying to be reasonable. We realize that property has 7 or more horses. So having a gate there is probably essential to keep the livestock in.
Right.
So, we've lived there. We know we have livestock. The previous owner had horses. He had cattle. My neighbor has cattle. Our horses and wants to have cattle. Another neighbor had goats and sheep. Gates are needed, but they don't have to be locked. And that's all we're requesting. So if that helps clarify your
It
question.
does, thank you. And just for my colleagues, with that statement, I would be prepared to move forward today.
We could add a condition number 26 stating that the gates on the project parcel at Ridge Road and Vernal Drive shall remain unlocked.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Or speak.
So then any motion would note the project and conditions as amended.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to say too, I'm open to move forward. I think Mr. Mitzel's been open to all concerns. And I feel like, with the technical issues with the language and the legal language, I prefer stronger language, but I do accept that county and the community development department are going to overlook and take into consideration any complaints or concerns, and adequately deal with those So I would like to move forward as well.
So I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for action.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion. I move that the planning commission find that potential impacts associated with this project can be mitigated to less than significant through the implementation of the mitigated negative declaration IS 20-68 for the properties located at 6051, 5951, 6200 Ridge Road and 1109 Vernal Drive, Lakeport, California, and further described in this motion, and will not have a significant effect on the environment, and that the planning commission adopt initial study IS 20-68 based on the findings listed in the staff report dated September 28, 2023, and as amended here today.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
I move that the planning commission grant major use permit UP 20-57 to WFPS Enterprises LLC on properties located at 6051, 5951, and 6200 Ridge Road and 1109 Vernal Drive, Lakeport, California, and further described in this motion, based on the findings and subject to the conditions included in the staff report dated October 12. Well, we have two different staff.
As amended.
As amended today.
All in favor?
I'll second.
Aye.
If we could just make a note that that is a typographical error. This staff report is actually dated November 9th. Thank you. We'll make note of that in the minutes.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Note, the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7 calendar day appeal period. If there is a disagreement with the planning commission, an appeal to the board of supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fee must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th day following the planning commission's decision on this matter. Thank you. Moving. Any non-timed items or department update?
I have a department update. So as the commission is aware, the goal or the vision of our department is to provide superior public service through three priorities. One is staff recruitment and retention. Second is staff professional development. And the third is fiscal sustainability. So I have just a little report today about that second priority, staff professional development. We did have two of our planning staff attend a housing summit in Ukiah this week. And we have almost all of our code enforcement staff at a Casio week-long conference for training. Additionally, our deputy administrator went to that. Thank you. Our deputy administrator also went to the code enforcement training because she's gaining really good data on working in community development. We brought her on the team, even though because of her management skills and her experiencing grant programs, which is that fiscal sustainability priority. But she came from an educational field, so she's learning an awful lot and will be for years to come about local community development government. So we're really excited about that. And then yesterday we had our first in-house meeting with PlaceWorks, the contractor for our general plan, local area plan. And we are also now submitting a proposed amendment to the agreement with them to add on the climate adaptation plan. And it's just timed really well because we have the safety element first. So we're doing the climate vulnerability analysis as well as the countywide evacuation plan. And those would inform a climate adaptation plan as well. It comes from a different grant source. We intend to make it regional. So we have specific, the general plan and the local area plans. One of our priorities is already to make sure that our communications with the tribes are initial early on so that we don't miss any input. And that will result in, as well as the two cities, because we want our our climate vulnerability analysis and the climate adaptation plan to be region-wide and be a tool that can be used by tribes or by the cities also. So we're really excited.
Great.
That concludes my report.
Yep.
Thank you.
And if there's nothing else, the meeting is adjourned at 10:35.